Hey everyone, welcome. I hope you're doing well. This is Midday Motion. My name is Deanna with Emotionally Available, and today we are talking about tools. So these are tools in our yoga practice that might be really useful to us. And we are going to be talking about traditional props, but we're also going to talk about how we can use tools and props in new ways. So I bet you guys are really good at adapting to your home practice, like, oh, I don't have a block, maybe I should do this, or oh, I don't have a bolster, maybe I should do this. But we're going to talk about the why we do those things. And also give you some more tools so when you're in a traditional class in a studio, you can use your props with more confidence. There is a myth in the movement and the fitness world that we need to be balls to the wall, super intense. It's all us. We're strong enough on our own. And sometimes props or tools get kind of be like, oh, that's for beginners. They're not. They're not for beginners. So right now, I have a few props around me. I'll back up in a moment so we can get started. But I have blocks, I have a towel, I have books, and I have some other tools that I want to talk about that are useful for meditation. So if you are practicing along with me, go ahead and get your tools that you think you might have useful for you today. But if you're just listening along, you don't need to do anything at all. Just so you know, I am talking to Instagram Live here, and I'm talking to YouTube Live here. So if you see me kind of tracking up and down, it's just because I'm trying to give both audiences, both live and recorded, some attention. That's what I'm doing. Okay, now we're going to get started right away with the simplest sit down moment. We often start yoga classes seated. So how do we start seated? Usually we are sitting crisscross. And this might feel really good or it might feel really crummy. So I want you to notice my alignment. I'll use myself as someone who needs a little help. Do you see how this is my right knee? My right knee is a lot higher. Yeah, I'm looking at myself in the camera as well. So that's because my right leg is in front of my left, which is changing the alignment and therefore changing the mobility. I also am quite tight in my right side because as a teacher, I often model on the right. And my left side is a little weaker sometimes, but it's also more flexible. I'm going to show you something. What would happen if you switched your feet? Yeah, now look, this side is now lower, it's really stretching, and this side is higher. So if you see those imbalances, don't worry about them. Don't stress, but here's some tools to help. I really like placing a block under my knees. This gives me a lot of support, and now I can actually sit here. I also like to put my hands on my ankles and then sit up really tall. So I'm really gently pulling myself forward and up, and that really helps. So blocks under the knees are awesome. Also, blocks under the feet. If you elevate your seat, sometimes that really changes how you feel. So what if you don't have blocks at home? If you don't have blocks at home, a towel is your best friend. You can roll this baby up or fold it a lot more nicely and stick it there. Same thing, you could put it on this side. I'm also going to grab some pillows. You could also do the same by placing pillows under the knees. Sometimes that can be just the right amount of assistance. Same thing, you can also go ahead and sit on the pillow, or you can go ahead and use your towel as a pillow. I like the towel because depending on how many times you fold it, that's a really great way to use your prop really efficiently. So not only thinking about what props we can use, both at home and in the classroom, but also why we use these props. And once again, we're elevating the seat or supporting the legs so we can find some symmetrical activation in our bodies, and so that we can also enjoy sitting here. Yeah, it could be an active pose that we need to stretch through and work through, but maybe also we just want to sit comfortably, and that's okay. All right, so when you're seated, think about those things. Now I'm going to throw a monkey wrench. When your teacher says to sit at the beginning of class, pay attention. Did they say sit, or did they say sit in lotus or crisscross? If they just said sit, you can sit in other ways. So one of my favorite ways to sit is kneeling. And I like to place one block long ways to my belly button and then one block perpendicular. Yeah, so what that's going to do, and if you can see from the top, I stagger them like this, and then I go ahead and sit on the cross block, and I'm nice and elevated. Also, my heels are kind of tucked underneath that space I created. Yeah. And you don't have to stagger the blocks, but I find that crisscrossing them feels really good for me. But of course, blocks are multi-height, so you could change which way you want to face them. Sitting crisscross often puts a lot of pressure on our knees. Sitting kneeling often puts a lot of pressure on our knees. So by sitting up a little bit, we're literally increasing the angle of our knees, which gives it a little rest. Also, if your low back is bothering you, this is a really comforting way to sit because it's easier to find a neutral pelvis. Okay, same thing. If you have your pillow, you can sit on a pillow. Yeah, and that really helps. I'm going to give you one more pillow option here. It's placing the pillow between your heels and your hips. Once again, we're trying to increase the angle of our knees, and that's a really good option too. If you have foot concerns, this can kind of compress the feet a little bit, so be mindful. I'm just going to give you as much information as I can. Okay. So what if your teacher asks you to get started in child's pose? Okay. Have you done this? I've done this to my students where I keep them in child's pose for like ever. We want to go ahead and make sure we're supporting our knees. So same rules apply. You can place those pillows between the seat and the hips, and I'm going to go out of camera slightly for my friends on Instagram. But once I'm now here, my knees are a little bit more supported, and that feels really good. If you are doing this wide, you could put the pillows more in the creases of your knees, and then go ahead and lean forward. This works for pillows and bolsters and blankets. I wouldn't recommend putting blocks between your knees because then you're going to have a very hard surface pressing down on your calf, and it's not going to feel as gentle and soft like child's pose should. Another favorite child's pose prop modifications. I love torso support, right? So I'm usually wide knees. So if my knees are nice and wide here, placing the props underneath my body feels really good. And also my head might want some support too. So that's sternum and head. If you have your bust line is getting in the way of that sternum block, I would think about placing it underneath the bust line. So for my friends who have that issue, if you were to wear a bra, that's the band, place the block there. Also, you can turn the block sideways and give it some space. Yeah, some of my friends who have that issue, I totally feel you. I don't have that issue so much, but I know it's a big issue for a lot of people with a bust line. Other really fun ones in this position include just rotating the blocks. Sometimes I start really high in my child's pose, and then I can change it, and then I can change it. So I'm getting lower and lower. So do remember that your blocks have this height, and this height. So not only take into account the elevation of your block, but also what you want for a surface, right? If you want to hold your block, this version or this version is great. If you need your hand or a big surface to be supported, you might want to think of the flat surface of your block. And then if you need it higher, getting a second one. All right. Okay. Third way we sometimes start class is laying flat on our backs. This is my favorite way to start class. So if you take class with me, you'll know I love this. All right. So we're laying flat on our backs. What's the issue I hear often? My back hurts. Yeah, I know, me too. So what we can do here is we can bend our knees. That allows you to release your pelvis a little bit. And then this is a perfectly fine place to be in, but I like to bring my feet slightly more than hip width apart and then knock my knees together. Now I feel like I don't have any effort here, and I'm just letting gravity hold me. Obviously, your arms could be in any position. Also, you could go ahead and elevate the feet. When you elevate the feet, you can really do this with any prop. Blocks, towel or bolster, pillows, all the stuff. But you could also start using books. So if you're at home and you don't have any props at home, books are great. So you can place books under the feet, and that's a really great solution. I also enjoy legs up the wall. So if you can at home, or if you're allowed to in the studio, move completely. You're gonna go ahead and scoot your seat all the way up to the wall, and then simply roll over and place your feet up. Yeah, so thinking about what in the room is a prop. I also like at home to use my couch or chairs as props. We're gonna get there in a second. You can physically grab your chair. Boom. My feet are up. Other ways that you can lie that's gonna relieve some pressure in different areas of the body include, so many props, oh my goodness. Placing a block under the back. So when you do this, it's not actually a low back prop, it's a back of the pelvis prop. Elevating here, either with straight or bent legs. This gives a lot of stretch here. This feels a little bit more comforting to me. Knees together still works. I like using a flat, hard surface for this pose because I feel most supported that way. There's nothing wrong with using a soft surface towel, bolster, pillow, but I find that because I'm using a really bony part of my body, the back of my pelvis, I also want a hard, flat surface to support it. If the surface is ever too hard, you can always place a towel blanket over that thing, and that really helps. Additionally, I think about when we're on our backs, you might want support under the elbows. That's really great for when you are taking twists. Yeah, support those arms. Something to think about. Because there's not a lot of weight downward into the arms, you could probably use a soft or a hard prop. Yeah, okay. So let's say we are getting cruising, we're flowing away, and your teacher asks you to be in a forward fold, boop, and then asks you to do a halfway lift. So this comes up in sun salutation a lot. When you take that halfway lift movement, you're literally coming halfway up, or for more mobile friends, until your back is flat and straight. Notice how I'm at a downward angle when I take this. I'm also very warm. Doesn't always look like this for me. So you have built-in props, which are your shins. Yeah, your shins are props. Use the shins for support. Try not to press back into the knees. Always use the shins. And you can always put a little micro bend in the knees. Yeah, a micro bend, I know I have jogger style pants on, is a bend that I can feel, but you may not notice. Right, this is locked, micro bend, real bend. Also, just food for thought, when you're taking this halfway lift, you never have to have straight legs. You could be bent the whole time. Yeah, just something to think about. So now you're getting into your lunges, maybe your runner's lunge, your low lunge, and you're going to go ahead and need something under the hands. This is when soft props are not allowed. You really need to make sure, because there's a lot of weight downward, that you're supporting that weight with something really strong. This is when I often like to bring in the books. Boom. Talk about props also being part of your body. This knee here, nice and flat and straight in either pose, is a prop. So if I only have enough props to use on one hand, I really like pulling my other hand to my knee. So it's the hand that's closest to the knee, boom, you're there. I would always use books really flat. I would get nervous trying to use books like this unless they are like so strong and secure. The reason is because even hardcover books, this is a better example, move. So I'd think about that. If you're wondering, this book is Faulkner, a collection of novels from 1936 to 1940. And this one is medieval art. These are both from when I was studying English and art studies. Yeah. So those are really good ones. I want to give you another pose that I just see props needing to be used. Okay, that one is your side angle. Yeah, let me turn the other way. My Instagram people are losing my head. Side angle or your triangle. So in both of these poses, this lower hand needs some help. Books, boom, that helps. Blocks, boom, that helps. But also your shin. Just be careful you're not pressing into the knee and you're also staying really strong and supported. It's really important here in triangle that you use that energy upward to help engage. Yoga is not about softening into poses that are active. You need to be actively reaching and stretching at the same time. When you're in side angle, if you already know how to use elbow to knee, prop, so good. But you have all of these other options. Fingertips is often a good one. Usually when we use our fingertips instead of the flat of our hand, it's going to cause us to exert more effort. So it's usually used for strengthening. But if you have really strong fingers, that might be a good way that you can kind of soften down into that. So just think about that. Okay. So what happens when we finish our class and it's time to meditate, or if you're just here for the meditation props? What we can do is, one, access any of these props to help us sit, lay, or find a position that feels comfortable. The only one that we didn't cover at the beginning is when we're in fetal position. I really enjoy having knees and arms supported. So this could be done with the bicep, hand, but it could also be done with a pillow or a block. Block fits really nicely right here. And also seeing if you want to support the knees. If I had it my way, I would probably put a block, if I had the opportunity, a block between the knees. This smallest range is exactly fits for my knees to now be parallel to each other, those femurs. I would then place a blanket under my head and I would probably hug a bolster. I know that sounds like a lot, but it makes me feel really aligned and really comforted. It makes me feel good. So I want you to think about that too. So that's a physical support system. Anything else you think of is safe. Just remember, if it's weight bearing or if the surface like a hand or low back is flat, you need a nice wide, flat, hard prop. If you're just looking for elevation or as a passive or yin pose, your soft props are going to be more useful to you, right? So think about having to do a runner's lunge with your hand on this. Yeah, not safe. Okay, so what happens when you're meditating? So I, want to make sure my body is supported when I meditate using any of these props. But I also know that it's not always easy to meditate. So if you're feeling really ungrounded and you're just kind of like feeling all over the place, having something that you can hold is super useful. If you're in class, literally holding your water bottle feels really comforting. I know that sounds strange, but think about when you look at information about calming down from anxiety. What can you see, touch, smell, hold? And if you don't battle clinical anxiety, knowing what some of those tools are can help bring the nervous system to calm down and find your meditation. So if you're in class and you're like, oh my God, I'm so stressed, hold your water bottle. Yeah, notice how it feels. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it heavy? And if you're laying on your stomach, make sure your water bottle is closed. You can place it right there on your heart. Just like when you want to bring more intention to your heart, or your stomach, or your breathing, you touch that. you could literally bring that thing and hold it. If you're at home, you could also get your favorite object, right? It doesn't have to be a spiritual object, so I'll go into that in a moment. It could just be your favorite thing. So let's say this book means a really lot to me. I might want to have it with me when I meditate. And I know it sounds, I think our ego gets in the way and we're like, what? We have to hold our favorite object like a stuffed animal would as a child? But yeah, you do. Sometimes you need it. For me, I'm really into like imagery and also sensory stuff. So if I can kind of use those tools, that really helps me. So for example, I'm feeling the book. I know I get a lot of joy from reading this book. It feels good. I'm going to bring it onto my mat with me. I also might be able to use it for imagery. I imagine that I am also as rich and multifaceted as this book. I can think about turning to a single page or turning to a single part of me and now just focusing on those things in me. So maybe I want to focus specifically on self-worth. I might imagine myself flipping through the book, focusing on just that one page of myself, the self-worth page, and really trying to meditate and focus on that. So you might be able to get really creative and think about what those things are, and that should feel really, really good. Okay, so if you are into crystals, tarot cards, other more traditional spiritual elements, use them. If you have cards, I have recently purchased an oracle deck. So if you want some guided meditation, you could go ahead and shuffle, pull a card. Ooh, this one is decision. And then maybe that helps guide your practice. So your meditation doesn't have to be guided by someone else. You can find things in your environment to help guide you. If you don't have cards or that doesn't resonate with you, open to your book. Ready? Let's see. Flipping open to a book. Boom. Okay, I just landed on the word you. Me. How can I focus just on the you for the next 10 minutes? I have also had some really great friends start giving me crystals. It just like happened all of a sudden. So it started with a terrarium with a bunch of beautiful pieces in it. I have a lot of chakra stones now, crystals, and also I've been wearing them because they're good reminders. So once again, physically holding something small and meaningful to you is going to help with your physical body to center and calm down, thinking about what those things mean to you. I'm like totally a crystal beginner and learning a lot. But for me, when I learn about the healing meanings or their purposes, it really helps me refocus. So no matter how powerful you think that tool is spiritually, just thinking about what it represents is really useful. For example, I have Snowflake Obsidian for grounding on right now. Whether I believe that it makes me more grounded on its own or not, it doesn't matter. So I'm giving my friends permission who are coming from the dance world to like enter the more spiritual side slowly with me. Just the fact that it means that, I can think about the meaning, or I can think about how it's literally giving me that if I feel more connected to the spiritual side. With the same thing, if you have a religious necklace that you wear, I wore a miraculous medal for many, many, many years. I actually made a note this weekend to go get a new one or get mine fixed because it got all knotted, which is such a shame. And when I'm wearing my miraculous medal, I think about feeling strong as a woman because Mary is on the miraculous medal, very Catholic and Episcopal, actually really Catholic. I feel like a very strong woman. I feel centered in my like feminine power, and I feel protected by her. So, remember that the tools you use, whether they're physical tools, but especially these more spiritual ones, they don't need to be a specific kind of spirituality. So any ways that makes you feel connected to your authentic self and maybe also your higher self is going to be useful to you. I had a yoga teacher that would, also do the oracle pulling cards at the beginning of yoga. And I didn't really get it. I knew nothing about card pulling, tarot, oracle, nothing. But she left out the book that explained each card. And so I picked up a card at the beginning. I went to my mat, I put it down, I looked at it. And even though I didn't know the meaning at the time, I just looked at the beautiful image and like tried to kind of meditate on that thing. I think it had a word on it too. But I didn't know like the true meaning, whatever that means, of the card. And then after class, she laid out the book. This one has one too, of what each card represents and means. And then I got to read it and see like, wow, like that's additional information for me to consider. Or how does that complement or contrast what I'd already been thinking about throughout my practice? And that's a good example of me not being spiritually connected to cards, but still getting something out of it. So don't feel like you have to be like 100% masterful at the things you want to try and do. I think that's really important. And if that kind of spiritual side resonates with you, definitely go ahead and check out Welling Wisdom. It's our other account that focuses on the spirit side. But it's a branch of emotionally available. You know, when I do emotionally available stuff, it's focusing on the mind, body, spirit, trinity. And I will always try to include that, whether it's dance or yoga or meditation. But I really felt pulled into talking more about the spiritual side. And so it's just kind of a little branch that just focuses on that. And it will be an offering and emotionally available. So right now we have the emotionally available membership and then the Welling Wisdom community. And it's going to be just a space to do some more deep dives about what spirituality is and how we can connect to spirit, meaning our spirit, like inside us, but also spirit as in higher power and other meanings. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully it is helpful to you. Whether you're watching live or recorded, I would love to know what you think. What tools do you have at home or love using in your classes, or you're just interested in learning about? I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm so thrilled you're here watching, whether it's live or recorded. You are part of this community and you are so valuable. Have a great weekend, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks, Instagram friends. See you later. Bye. Hi, YouTube friends, if it's still recording. Clicking off now. Have a good one.